Coaching in Session.
Your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
When is the last time that you were brave? When is the last time could you say that you accomplished the unaccomplishable, the things that couldn't have been done? When I think about bravery, I think of this mindset of a person that fights a fight, even if they know they are going to lose, but they do it like they're going to win. This idea of bravery might be maybe stupidity in a sense. Why in the world would you fight a fight that you know you're going to lose? But then you give yourself this idea that you do it with this passion, with this vigor, that it doesn't matter if you win or you lose. You're going to fight. Sometimes bravery requires not only consistency, but it requires a deliberate attention to an act or to a situation. For example, if you are a parent, most of the time you have to be brave for your children. When they come running in, "Mommy, Daddy, there's a monster under the bed." Now, of course, we know there's no monsters, but maybe you're a person who's still afraid of the dark. Maybe you're a person that has had scars in their life and you are afraid to some degree. But then you put on a brave front and you go into the room and you look under the bed and you go, "Look, there's no monster there." But then you go into your room and maybe you get this feeling of, was I being brave or was I being foolish? This idea of bravery is a connotation that we give ourselves. We say you're brave if you can go to war. You're brave if you can stand up for your rights. You're brave if you can not allow people to say things to you and you simply don't just sit there. You talk back when things are wrong. When you see something unjust, you do something. You take action when action needs to be taken. All of those things can be bravery in a sense. But the idea for bravery and mindset today have become different because our world is very different than it was 10, 20, 30 years ago. And we can keep going down 100,000 years of the human evolution and how things have changed. Bravery at some point was, I'm going to fight this saber-toothed lion. And today, bravery can be, I'm going to step in front of this crowd and go on stage. It's very different. But this idea of bravery is in our daily life. It's going to show up in countless ways. It's going to show up in countless times. We need to be able to look at what the bravery mindset is. Today, we're going to be looking at this article that I wrote where we're talking about the bravery mindset. We're talking about how bravery begins with an understanding that fear is natural, but we can't allow the fear to completely control us. Sometimes bravery is feeling the fear and doing it anyway. We need to understand that to be brave, we must not be disillusioned. We must not be overly pessimistic. We must be a person that acts and takes action when action is necessary. I think of a person who's trying to understand what bravery is in our world today. Because again, bravery was taught to us when we're younger, a knight in shining armor saving a princess or fighting a dragon. And then when you're a teenager, maybe going off to war or being brave and standing up for yourself or fighting a fight or whatever it be, right? You could be brave in that regard. But then again, we can look at how bravery has evolved, and we can look at maybe bravery as choosing to have difficult conversations with people. Maybe it can be waking up early and working toward our goals, even when no one is watching, right? That can be brave because there's uncertainty there. Then we can look at this idea of forgiving somebody, not because they need to be forgiven, but we need to be at peace. We can give ourselves this idea that we can say no to things. I'm going to say no to somebody because what they want from me, or they want me to do something, or what they want me to do is not going to bring me anything. And I think about how many people, they just choose to be kind of like a punching bag. lackadaisical. They just kind of take what is given to them. Sometimes this happens when people are being bullied. They just accept it, right? It's just a quiet acceptance. Like, oh, this is what it is today. This is just life. It is what it is. Just because it was doesn't mean that it can't be. This idea of that something has happened, but we can change the situation. Now, the situation is not the idea of the outcome that had happened previously, right? That previously happened. We can't go back in time, but we can learn from our lessons. We can say, hey, I've made a mistake, but I'm not going to keep on making these mistakes. So we say, I'm going to be brave the next time this comes around, and I'm not going to fall into this victimhood of feeling bad or something. I know when I was in high school and my dad would give me like $20 for the whole week for getting school lunch. And the French fries, I think, cost like $1.50 or maybe $3.50 or something crazy, right? So sometimes you had to get French fries because a whole meal would cost almost $10. It was like five something, maybe. Sometimes if you got like just a meal, it's like some chicken tenders. You basically just got something to hold you over. And $20 was not enough, okay? Especially if you wanted to eat well. Well, sometimes I just ate some fries. Sometimes I just had some chips or I just got a drink or something. And that was what I ate for the week, right? But then again, you got people wanting money because people don't have no money. And they're like, hey, can I get, $1, $5? Can you get some fries or something like that? And you got the peer acceptance. You got the peer thing going on. You're like, okay, yeah, I want to feel like I'm being a person that is needed and that I'm a person that is, part of the crowd. So I'm doing what needs to be done, right? I'm favored by people, right? So sometimes people can, fall into that trap. But then I started to think about leadership in this regard. And I started to think about bravery. Because in order to be a leader, you have to be brave in a sense. Because if I think of people who have maybe lost their lives, have been leaders, Nelson Mandela, Martin Luther King, we just think of people who have maybe given themselves a path that maybe at some point they might say, hey, what is this? Right? Muhammad Ali, he had a lot of issues too, especially with fighting white boxers, things along those lines. But then again, he was giving himself this idea of bravery. And sometimes bravery can maybe be cockiness, or it could be misconstrued as cockiness. But I think bravery is wrapped around or is presented a little bit differently. Bravery is very similar to valor, where valor is this idea of you do something because it's right. Sometimes when you are a teenager, you are trying your best to fit into every mold, maybe to too many molds at once. And it could be debilitating in our world today. And we're going to be talking about that more to come because I think that's so important that we understand how teens are operating today. But one of the things I did, and I remember I even told my sister at the time because she was going through those same ideas, was I was like, do you know what a leader is? I was like, a leader is you can see your friends sitting at a table and you choose to sit at a different table with someone who's maybe less popular, who's sitting by themselves, and you bring up a conversation with them. And it might seem like the smallest thing, right? The smallest thing, like, why in the world would you be considered brave for talking to somebody who's a nobody? But the idea is the backlash you might get. Oh, your friends might say, oh, you can't talk to that person because they're weird. All right. They smell funny. This person is no good. They say this or they don't like this. So people are telling you who you can like, who you can be friends with. But then again, you are living your own life and you can walk your own path. Maybe bravery for you at that point is I'm going to do what I want. And it doesn't matter what you think. It doesn't matter how you portray me. I understand what I'm going to do. And so bravery can be confidence. Bravery can be this idea that you are going to be walking with this mindset that if you have to go alone, you will. But if you want to go together, I'm all for it. We think of war. War is not fought by just one person. even though war is very different than war of the past. Before, we needed to have hundreds of thousands, if not millions of troops on the ground to win wars. But now we can do everything remotely. We can have drones and AI do all of the attacks. And so there is no human anymore in war. It's all technology. But then again, there's so many human lives that are lost every single day because of war, because of what happens after the war. We can see what's happening in Gaza, where children are going hungry. They didn't ask for this situation, but they have to put on a brave front. They have to be brave. They have to figure out a way to survive and to live. I can't imagine for an American to be in that situation. They don't have the mindset. Like, they literally don't have the mindset for it. They are going to have the most difficult time with the transition. Their water might be a little bit cloudy. I can't drink this. They don't even know how to survive if there's a freeze or a flood. We can see what's happening around the world, or at least around America. It's just something where people are just not preparing themselves for things that have never happened. Or maybe they're not preparing themselves for things that are unlikely. But I like to say, you have a toolbox for a reason. Just because you don't use the tools every single day doesn't mean you don't need them. I remember there was a Joe Rogan podcast episode where he talked about renting tools. He's like, yeah, if I need something, I'll go rent it. If I need a drill, I'll go rent a drill from Home Depot or something like that. And rightfully so. He can do that. But the problem is he's not using the drill most likely. He is probably saying, hey, this needs to be fixed, and someone else is going to fix it, right? He has the money. He can do that. He can have people come and fix the homes and that he's living in, and fix the cars that he's driving in. That could be his situation at the time. But that's not going to be everyone's situation. Some people, they can't afford going out to fancy meals and things like that. So they will go to the grocery store and they'll make something maybe a little bit more fancy than what they would be used to. Maybe some mac and cheese that they wouldn't typically buy that is like the more expensive Gouda or something, right? I mean, that's thinking on the low level, but maybe you get some sirloin steaks, or you get some Wagyu beef or something along those lines. You get some lobster tails. I mean, we can go down the list of all the luxurious types of food that you can indulge yourself in. But this is taking a step away from what bravery is. Bravery is not so much of that you're just doing what you think you need to be doing. Sometimes bravery is asking yourself, what fears in my life am I allowing to dictate my future? If you are a person that is living in the past, if you are a person that is living in your circumstances, perhaps you are a person that is not showing up every single day when you know you can be showing up. All of these concepts and all of these ideas of bravery, they lead to a mindset. The mindset that if you are ready and you're capable of living the life that you want to live, but you have to figure out what that life is. This should be maybe like a TUS, right? You need to know what you want to do or what you want to accomplish in order to be brave. But then again, bravery can just be, again, standing up for somebody that you don't even know. Because I think the aftermath of understanding where you could have been brave and you weren't is regret. Maybe you are somewhere and someone says something to someone and you don't do anything. There's a couple of reasons why you don't do it. Number one, you don't have the skill. So your brain is basically saying you don't have the skill, so don't get in the way, right? Maybe your living situation, for example, in New York or something like that, people just mind their own business, right? Like they don't say anything to each other. They're just like, hey, it's my business, right? I'm going to handle this. Maybe I'm not going to handle it, right? I'll figure it out. So they have this idea of doing things themselves. Then you have people who are just overly heroic, like they want to be the hero for everyone. But then again, those people don't feel any type of fulfillment because they're seeking exterior validation. I'm talking about the bravery of if you do something and no one sees, do you feel good about it? If no one thanks you, if the world hates you, can you still say, yeah, I did what I needed to do? Sometimes when you have all of that external stimulus pointing at you and saying what you have to do and what you should be doing, it could be a daunting task. So most people, when it comes to bravery, they choose not to. This is why sometimes you can see videos of people that get mugged or they get beat up, and you just see people walking by, people are minding their own business. Is that bravery? Or was that fear taking over and it stops them from taking action? Most of the time it was fear. Now, I'm not saying that bravery is being reckless and running into burning buildings and to do all of these reckless things. Bravery has a mindset to it. Bravery has this idea of, I'm doing this not for them, I'm doing this for me. And not for my self-esteem. I'm doing this so I can sleep at night. Now, this is a far-fetched idea of what bravery is, but I want you to understand, I want you to stick with me, because bravery is maybe the best melatonin of your life. What if you woke up in the morning and you said, today I'm going to do all the things I was afraid of. I'm going to make the calls. I'm going to do the emails. I'm going to respond and I'm going to create content and I'm going to go in and I'm going to ask my boss for a raise and I'm going to tell off a coworker who's eating my lunch or something like that. I mean, we can go down the list of all the things that can go wrong or the things that could possibly be against of what would be an ideal day. And we say, what would a brave version of ourselves do? A brave version of ourselves won't just simply go to war at any single point. It would be a person that understands that there is a time for battle and then there's a time for action. There's a difference. Action can just be, hey, we're not doing this today. Action can be picking up something. Action can be just doing the thing that you didn't want to do, you're afraid of. Mike Tyson had a great way of putting discipline. He goes, doing what you hate, but doing it like you love it. Bravery could be in the same regards. You're doing something that you're afraid of, but you're doing it like you're confident in it. I'm sure that people who are doing things for the first time are going to be brave. But then again, we can look at them and we can see their face and we can see maybe their body language. And maybe they have all the signs of someone who's nervous. Their hands are shaking, their voice is cracking, their body is quivering. And we can look at all of these signs and say, oh, I guess they're not brave. But imagine how much was needed for them to even get on stage in the first place. How many people run away from the stage of life that they're in? Too many to count. And it's too many to allow to keep on going on. We need to get a mindset of bravery back into our regiment. I'm not saying that we need to go fight dragons and go fight wars. I'm not saying that we need to go be Spider-Man and vigilantes and we need to go stop all the crime and be like Batman and Gotham. But I am saying we need to be able to fight our own fights. We need to be able to choose our higher self. We need to not allow fear to debilitate us. We need to put on a brave face, maybe in the beginning, because with bravery or confidence, you have to do the task sometimes with this idea that you don't know the result quite yet. And it's okay that you don't know the result. And it's okay if you lose and you don't win. Bravery can be that, hey, I didn't win, but I'll try again. But then again, you're not starting from failure, you're starting from wisdom. And bravery can be that we learn about ourselves a little bit more every single day. And maybe we challenge ourselves a little bit more every single day. I think of maybe a child who is recovering from some type of ailment, an illness. It could be a regular person too, but how brave they are to take the steps, to go through the pain that it requires them. Because I can imagine someone going through intense therapy and there's so much pain and maybe even some uncertainty, but they still push through. They still do it in the hopes and the anticipation that things might change. And the bravery, this aspect, this mindset is not built on limits, because the doctor can come in and they can say, you'll never walk again. A doctor might come in and say, you have 6 months to live. This is to say that you get to choose how brave you want to be. You get to choose your mindset. You get to choose your limits. And the idea of bravery is one with limits that are going to be minimal, if not any. So there's many things to be said about the bravery mindset. In this article here, The Bravery Mindset, I give a clear guide of what bravery is and basically going down the list of how your bravery can maybe deter you away from some things. For example, it gives you some level of fear of like, hey, I'm afraid to do this, but then bravery can step in and maybe save the day. It could be an idea that could maybe change your mindset of how you view fear. And so when you're reading this article, I want you to understand it's different than the conversation that we had today because anyone can just read an article. But I want you to understand that bravery can be loud, it can be quiet. It just depends on where you are in life. Some people are just outright brave. You just look at a person and you could say, wow, you're so brave. I think of like women, and women do a really good job at this, where they support each other, where they see a woman who's being a boss babe or a go-getter or whatever, and you see other women, they say the same thing, right? And they say, wow, you're so brave. Oh, I couldn't imagine myself doing that. So bravery is very different today. We can look at someone who's doing something and we can look at ourselves for not wanting to do the thing because maybe to us, it's a big step. But bravery doesn't have to be a huge leap today. Bravery can be something small. Bravery can be maybe after you have fallen, maybe a moment of grief, you have lost a loved one, something happened negative in your life, lost a job, whatever. You can say, today I'm going to get up and I'm going to go for a walk. Today I'm going to get up and I'm going to go eat a good meal, right? That could be brave today. Bravery doesn't have to be this grandiose thing, right? It's a mindset. And this is not about thinking in an optimistic way of I'm a hero and I'm going to make sure I defeat the demons of the world and I'm going to defeat all the bad people and evil. That's not what this is. The bravery mindset is, what are my limitations? What are my fears? And can I overcome them today? This is going to be simple in concept, but it's going to be maybe one of the most challenging things a person can do. To step into bravery, especially if you have been allowing fear to permeate in all the things you have been doing, especially if it has been for years. You have to dismantle all of these beliefs that you have given yourself, the ones that don't serve you, the ones that are the shackles, the ones that are stopping you from a mindset that could be more in the sense of what a brave person's mindset would be. Person who understands what they want, and a person that understands what they have to do, a person that understands that they're not going to simply sit back and allow something to happen in front of them that they would regret if they didn't take action or if they didn't say something. So if you want to do something, you might have to do it afraid today, but then you build up the tolerance, you build up the mindset, and eventually your mindset becomes not just one of no limits, or a mindset of optimism, but a mindset that is brave, filled with actions, and filled with this idea of that I can be my highest self today. It might be a journey to get there. Typically, the hero's journey is. But this concept can help elevate you in life if you choose to dive into it. And so the link is going to be right down below. I encourage people to check out this article, The Bravery Mindset. It's going to be a great example or resource for you to understand what bravery was and what bravery is today. We don't have to simply repeat the strands of time because that is what was 10, 20, 30, 50 years ago, whatever it be. Bravery can be something different today. How do you define your bravery?